Alright guys, welcome back to another video. So today I really wanted to talk about some Granblue Fantasy vs Rising. We haven't made a video on this for a while now. I've been playing season 2 here and there, but recently not so much because other games came out. But I want to talk about Granblue today because I've been replaying the game, and I also wanted to take this opportunity to give my thoughts on a few different things. I've already recorded this video several times, but the initial idea was supposed to be about how I felt about season 2, but now I've changed my thoughts on this and I've decided to focus the video more on a very specific topic, which is Dashlight. We're here once again, one season later, talking about this mechanic. I've talked about this before in season 1, early in season 1 actually. I even made a video about this. I talked about how I felt like the mechanic was too strong, and my logical conclusion to it was just make it a poke. Well, things have changed. Lots of characters have come out. General changes have happened, and I kind of want to make a new video about this because my thoughts on Dashlight have changed quite a bit, and I really want to, take the time to really focus on this mechanic because it's a big topic. It's an important topic for this game, and it dictates the future of this game because Dashlight is a very fundamental core mechanic to Granblue at this moment. So with that being said, I will still quickly give my thoughts on season 2, but we will focus more on the video will be more focused on Dashlight. So let's start with season 2, how I feel in general. The chapter is in the video, by the way. If you want to skip, just go ahead and do it. But my general thoughts on season 2 are, I think season 2 as a whole, the patch itself is not great, but I would say the state of the game is still pretty good or pretty solid. It's still pretty much the same game that we've been playing. So if you enjoyed or you don't enjoy the game, you haven't enjoyed the game in season 1, it's basically still the same. So quickly, how I feel about some of the changes. I think the change to DPs overall are good, but I think the counter hit state is kind of questionable and kind of unnecessary too. I'm actually afraid that in the future it will come back to bite us in the ass because they might make more changes to character. They might increase damage here and there. They might give more routes to characters here and there, and this is something that will lead to basically making DPs, if it already hasn't, it will make DPs, or at least non-meter DPs, useless, because why would you go for an option that will lead an opponent to hit you with like an 11,000 damage combo, for example? So that's a problem. Now every DP will just be a meter DP, and I think that would kind of suck. Yes, Shotos were strong, and generally DP characters were pretty privileged, but I don't think it's a reason to necessarily give them a death sentence on one of the tools that they have. Okay, next we have the Brave counter change. While I think Brave counter being minus on block is definitely a good thing and objectively a good thing, I think at this point of the game, this change should have happened way back in the Vayne patch, for example. Way back, because now we've spent so much time with BC being plus on block that even to this day I still see people actually baiting DP with a spot dodge, BC with a spot dodge. I think it's funny because it makes sense in a way that people would still want to bait BC. The problem is that I think a better choice would have been to remove the counter hit hard knockdown for BC, because it's a toxic mechanic. It's very unearned, and it's a corner still as well. It's insane. It's way too good. To me, something that would have also been really good would have been to add a slowdown effect on spot dodge against BC, similar to spot dodge against Raging Strike. I think that would have been really cool. Maybe would have not led to the same let's say reward, but they could have made it maybe +6 whenever you actually spot dodge a BC, or maybe +5, so that you can go into a close light as a punish, right? That way it could have been a cooler way to actually reward outplaying the opponent. I think that would have been really cool. That on top of removing the counter hits hard knockdown would have been really awesome. Now when it comes to characters, I will say, for example, we have a character like Lucilius. I think the nerf to Lucilius was 100% justified, but something that they can do in the future for Lucilius, because now it's too hard for him to reach Blade level 5, they could make it so whenever he enters the stance with 5U, for the first few frames of that stance, Lucilius' blade level should increase dramatically, but eventually slow down by a lot, so that way, maybe for the first 10 to 15 frames, for example, he gets a nice chunk of blade level, but then afterwards it goes back to like this very slow increase, right? I think that way it allows Lucilius to get more blade level as a whole, but at the cost of a gap in his, let's say, playstyle overall. Next character I want to talk about a little bit is Belial. The nerf that they made to Belial is, I think, once again, another character that needed to be nerfed 100%, though I don't necessarily agree with the way it's been nerfed. I think Belial is a character that is meant to have very few weaknesses and to be really solid overall. However, the big problem that I've always had with Belial in this version of the game was the fact that he has way too much damage, his combos are way too good, his confirms are way too good, his corner carry is simply way too good. The character has access to too much reward overall, and that was always my biggest issue with him. For example, I think his fireball should have just been a launcher. For some reason it doesn't launch, especially the spinning part. I think that part should have launched the opponent 100%. I also think that things like 2M, counter hit 2M into far heavy is just way too good, and they should have probably nerfed it. They should have made it so he can no longer do counter hit 2M into far heavy, but instead by making maybe counter hit 2M only +6, so that maybe he can only do counter hit 2M into far light, right? Something like that. Also, his far heavy is just way too good of a move. Not only is it already safe in general, but also he can cancel it. Why make it cancelable but also safe when you can make it punishable if the opponent actually doesn't commit to an option when he uses that move? So that's something, those are the things that I would have probably adjusted on Belial. Generally speaking, those are the biggest points that I wanted to talk about when it comes to season 2. When it comes to other things, there's also like the survival mode. I like the survival mode, but I really dislike the implementation of it. I think it's just way too easy. The CPU is just way too inactive. Overall, it feels more like a time attack mode because you're fighting for timer. You're not fighting necessarily to survive. You're not struggling against the opponents. They are mostly like big stacks of meats with giant HP bars that you just have to beat into, but you are not really struggling against them. I like the ultimate characters, the ultimate bosses. They are funny, they have funny gimmicks, and hopefully one day they decide, hey, let's make actually something like this a thing for online game modes. It can be fun. Also, the experience. Where is the XP? You don't get any XP for playing this game mode. I mean, you get some, but very little. I went into this with like level 1 Lancelot and I barely got any XP. This was finally a way to fix grinding for experience in this game, because you cannot grind for XP easily offline. You have to play the game online only. What about the people who don't have good online? What about the people who don't want to necessarily play online because it's too sweaty? What about the real casual players? This game mode is not good for them at all, because not only is it kind of boring, but also it's not really good for leveling up your characters to get like your level 500 rewards. And now that they've even increased the the levels of the character, the level cap, how do you even do that without playing online? That's the problem. So with that being said, those are my thoughts on season 2. There's a lot of things that I do not like, but I hope that in the future they change a couple of things here and there. Now let's talk about the real subject that we are really here for, which is Dashlight, and generally speaking just the game as a whole, because it's a big part of the game. So this mechanic has been a problem for far too long. Initially, my idea was that they should have made Dashlight a poke, make it like -2 to 0 on block instead of +2 to +4, so basically nerf it by 4 frames. Also, I wanted them to make Dashlight no longer a combo starter, so things like Dashlight Firelight Special or Dashlight Close Them Auto Combo into all that stuff like that. I didn't want it to be in the game. I really wanted Dashlight to just be a poke in general, and to me, to this day, it's still like the best thing that they could have done, but it's now way too late when you take in consideration a lot of other things. For example, think about how in 1.50 they universally allowed characters to go from Dashlight Close M And then think about also a character say like Versusia. What is the very simple thing that Versusia does all the time in every match? EX pillar into run up dash light. How do you change the mechanic and not affect the way a character like that plays? Taking a break from this game and coming back to it kind of made me realize that I'm a little bit exhausted of dealing with the same things over and over, and some aspects of Dashlight that take away a part of the game that I enjoy a little bit, which is the neutral, the mind game, and stuff like that. Right, Dashlight is taking a little bit too much space in my opinion, and I think it's time for them to kind of take it down by a smidge. Now, the ideas that I'm going to propose here are based on a character that is very controversial, and I know this, but I think this character plays Granblue versus Rising really well, especially with all the dash attacks and all, and that character is Versusia. Now, I already know just saying the name is like Voldemort. Some people are triggered, some people feel their hair being, it's raised, you know, they can feel like their hair on the back raising and stuff like that. So I already know, but I really want to explain myself here and explain these ideas. So there's two versions of the same ID basically. The first one, very simple, very straightforward, and the second one has a little bit more going into it and a little bit more depth as well. So the base ID is this: I want characters to have two different states of dashes, a startup dash and a late dash. And I want them to make it so you can only use dash attacks, all of the dash attacks, only in late dash. Now, when I say startup dash and late dash, I don't want it to make it look like it's like Versusia, for example, because Versusia is supposed to be a heavier character and her speed or her dash is pretty special, right? It's supposed to have this kind of rubber bandy type of dash startup or wind up basically. I don't want every character to be that way because it would be kind of clunky. So startup dash, for example, a character for a character like Gran would be slightly, just very slightly slower than his current dash speed, so it would still be very useful, it would still be really good, but it would not be necessarily as good as it is right now. But his late dash is basically his current dash speed, and you can only use dash attack in that late dash, right? That's the only time you can use a dash attack. And let's say in order to move from startup dash to late dash, you need 20 frames, right? So that means you can only start to use dash attacks at 20 frames of your current dash. And dash attacks, and specifically dash light being 8 frames, basically means you have about 28 frames to react to a dash light, right? In my opinion, something like that would make a lot more sense. Now, some characters could be negatively affected by this. Say a character like Eustace, say a character maybe like Cagliostro, or even characters like Zoe, who are relying on their overheads to set up some things sometimes. Characters like that could be negatively affected, and this is why I have a little bit of a selfish demand: please bring back universal overheads. Now, the second version of this idea is this: I want the same thing. We're still rocking with late dash and startup dash. However, you can now do dash attacks in your startup dash, but the trade-off is that your dash attacks in startup dash are going to be much weaker. So for example, dash light is not going to be plus on block, it's going to be actually -2 to 0 on block, and maybe that's the version of dash attacks that dash light that doesn't go into a combo, right? Same thing for dash medium, same things for dash heavies. Maybe those are more punishable, maybe those have less range, maybe, who knows. But it's just like an idea of what I'm proposing here, so that there's still a chance for characters to represent some of these moves, but they come with like a much bigger consequence. Also, I think something that would accompany this change, and that would be nice, would be to nerf dash recovery by making it slightly slower. In my opinion, that's something that would be kind of good. Maybe it would be too much on top of the others, I'm not too sure, but in my opinion, it's something that should kind of complement this change really well, because I think with dash attacks being the way they are, you never really feel the idea of this game having like a dash recovery. It's barely perceptible, because the situation where you can punish a dash they basically don't exist. It's basically non-existent. Personally, I think it's something that would actually be nice for this game. And the reason why I would like something like that to exist is because I really don't like the fact that in this game people can just do in neutral, dash, stop, and then instant dash light. This is really annoying because whenever people run, you can kind of dissuade them from continuing the run with something like a 2M, for example. If I play Beelzebub, I'm kind of mashing on 2M, I'm kind of mashing on far M to just stop them from running at me. But because of instant dash light, people can do something like dash stop into instant dash light, and then they can whiff punish me with something like that, and they go into far light, into raging strike, into combo, into wall bounce, into all these shenanigans, right? And it's such a big punish, and it just removes so many options. It kind of hurts the mind game too. It hurts the mind game. It hurts the neutral of the game. There's no neutral because you're basically representing offense all the time. The move that I have to represent with Beelzebub is dive kick, and none of my normals. I don't represent my far H, I don't represent my 2M, I don't represent my 5M. I have to rep dive kick. Those are pretty much my ideas on how to fix dash light. I don't necessarily think these are the best ideas by far, but to me, and because I take in consideration all of the things that they've done so far with the new characters, with how they designed some mechanics, with the direction they've taken in general, to me it's something that makes sense. It's something that is like the most logical thing they can do right now for Dashlight. It will never be the same style of neutral that we have in vanilla, unfortunately. I dearly miss it. It's still something that was really special to me, but I don't think this game needs to be a stupid game either. And this is basically how I feel about most fighting games. I think most fighting games, or most new fighting games, can implement whatever idea they want to implement. It's just that a lot of times they go too far with those ideas and the games kind of look stupid a lot of times. So let me know what you think in the comment section below. I've yapped enough about this and I would really like to know what people think. What other ideas do you have for Dashlight? What would you like to see? Because to me, this is what makes the most sense. So let me know what you think in the comment section below. I'll see you all in the next video. Have a good one. Peace.